So, friends, in something of a surprise twist in Donald Trump's criminal case in New York, the prosecutors just announced that they will not call as a witness Karen McDougal. You recall Miss McDougal? That's another woman whose story about an affair with Donald Trump was caught and killed to benefit Donald Trump politically. What does it mean that the prosecutors have decided not to call Miss McDougal? Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, in something of a surprise move, after Stormy Daniels completed her testimony in Donald Trump's criminal trial up in New York, the prosecutors announced that they've decided not to call Karen McDougal as a witness. And I think I have a pretty good idea why. But let's start with some of the other developments in the trial. And I have to say, based on the reporting I read, it sure sounds like Stormy Daniels was getting the better of Donald Trump's attorney, the attorney that was cross-examining her, Susan Necklace. Let's start with the new reporting. This from NBC News. Headline, Trump's lawyer grills Stormy Daniels on motives for accepting hush money. And that article reads in part, Trump lawyer Susan Necklace asked her, Stormy Daniels, about the number of porn films she's written and directed and said, you have a lot of experience making phony stories about sex. This from Stormy Daniels. Wow, that's not how I would put it, Daniels replied. The sex in the films is very much real, just like what happened to me in that room with Trump. And Miss Daniels added, if that story was untrue, I would have written it to be a lot better. Who do you think got the better of that exchange? The article continues. Necklace asked Miss Daniels if it was the first time in her life someone had made a pass at her. Daniels said it was the first time with somebody twice my age and bigger than me who had a bodyguard outside the door. Who do you think got the better of that exchange? You know, based on the reporting, it really does sound like Stormy Daniels, a prosecution witness, finished strong, and Donald Trump's criminal defense attorneys finished less strong. There were other issues taken up by the court today. Trump attorney Todd Blanche asked Judge Merchan to allow an exemption to the gag order so that Trump could respond publicly to Stormy Daniels' testimony. Quote, we ask that President Trump be allowed to respond publicly, Blanche said. It cannot be that he cannot respond to that now that she's off the stand. Chris Conroy, one of the prosecutors, told the judge that modifying the gag order would risk the integrity of the trial. Let's not pretend Trump wants to engage in high-minded discourse, Conroy said. His remarks come after Trump's attorney requested that the gag order be lifted just in regard to Stormy Daniels, who was on the stand for 2 days this week. And friends, not surprisingly, Judge Merchan refused to modify the gag order. Think about it. What good would it do if a gag order was in place prohibiting Donald Trump from attacking the witnesses before their testimony, but he could attack them after their testimony for what they said? He could retaliate against them. Might that have a chilling effect on future witnesses? Judge Merchan promptly shot down Donald Trump's attempt to modify the gag order so he could start attacking witnesses after they testified. And then there was this admittedly surprising development. Karen McDougal, who said she had a sexual encounter with Trump, actually, she said she had a 10-month-long intimate relationship with Donald Trump. Karen McDougal will no longer be called by prosecutors to testify, Trump's lawyer Todd Blanche said this afternoon in court. Blanche said the district attorney's office informed him that she would not take the stand. McDougal, a former Playboy model, allegedly had her story about the claimed encounter bought by the National Enquirer. So why might the prosecutors have decided that they don't need to call Karen McDougal as a witness? Well, let's start with some of the basics of how we go about prosecuting cases. You know, there's an old saying about how you investigate cases in the grand jury versus how you prosecute them at trial. In the grand jury, during the investigation, you investigate broadly, and then once you get to trial, you prove your case narrowly. So, for example, I might have 50 witnesses on my witness list, thinking I may call all 50 at trial, but I might end up only calling 25 or 30 witnesses. Why? Because what prosecutors do is they assess, at the conclusion of each witness's testimony, they assess, one, how the witness performed. Was the witness convincing, compelling, credible on direct examination when the prosecutor was asking the questions? Did the witness withstand cross-examination? Or was the witness's credibility undercut by the defense attorney during cross-examination? You assess, one, how the witness performed, and then, importantly, you also assess how the evidence of your case, how the evidence of guilt is building over the course of several witnesses, and you make a decision. Do you continue to call all of the witnesses on your witness list, or do you begin to jettison some of the witnesses because you believe the evidence is getting stronger and stronger, and you may not need all the witnesses who are on your witness list? I almost always ended up jettisoning, declining to call some witnesses as the trial progressed in the event I believed the evidence was building toward conviction. And so after the testimony of the, David Peckers and the Stormy Daniels and so many others, the prosecutors are very likely believing they don't need Karen McDougal's testimony. They're already building toward a conviction. And here's something to keep in mind. There are no criminal charges involving the catch and kill story or the catch and kill scheme that they deployed to hide the Karen McDougal story about her 10-month relationship with Donald Trump. There are no criminal charges, no falsifying business records involving Karen McDougal or that catch and kill scheme that involved David Pecker and Donald Trump and Michael Cohen. So her testimony would be sort of what we call MO testimony, modus operandi, method of operating, just to give the jury an idea of this catch and kill scheme that was perpetrated by Donald Trump and various of his criminal associates over and over and over again, multiple times by the National Enquirer, David Pecker, and then ultimately when David Pecker said, "Bank's closed, not doing it for you anymore, Donald. I'm trying to help you in your campaign. I'm trying to help you get elected, but the bank is closed." And Donald Trump wasn't reimbursing David Pecker for catching and killing damaging stories to Donald Trump. So the charged offenses, the 34 felony charges of falsifying business records, deal exclusively with the records that Trump and Cohen and Weisselberg falsified to cover up the Stormy Daniels hush money payments, all to gain unfair advantage in a political election. So they don't need Karen McDougal. And the prosecutors almost certainly believe the evidence is coming in well. The witnesses are withstanding cross-examination. Heck, it sounds like Stormy Daniels was getting the better of Donald Trump's defense attorney when she was trying to cross-examine Stormy Daniels? And so the prosecutors, for that reason, very likely, made the decision, we don't need Karen McDougal.